Welcome back to SheCan, where women role models lead by example by telling their stories, by sharing their insights and experiences to guide others, because it's easier to be what you can see. And I'm so excited to be talking to Julie Cole today. Julie, welcome to SheCan.
Oh, thank you so much, Stephanie. I'm so happy to be here.
You're an entrepreneur, the co-founder of Mabel's Labels, a speaker, a parenting contributor, and award-winning author. You're a mom of 6 and you're a media personality. You appeared on the Today Show, CNN, Breakfast Television, and many others. Your articles appear in the Huffington Post, Today's Parent, The Globe, and more. You speak about business and parenting, and you wrote a book called Like a Mother, where you share your inspirational stories and lessons learned through parenting, your lovely crew of kids, and building a multi-million-dollar business with your co-founders between your children's nap times and play dates. It's full of business, life, and mum hacks. And we're so excited to have you, Julie. So tell us a tiny bit more about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Right. Well, yeah, it has been a journey indeed. So I guess it all started way back. So Mabel's Labels started 22 years ago, and I started it with my co-founders, who are my sister and 2 friends I went to university with. And we basically started because there was a product missing from the market. And, people are always saying, how did you come up with the idea? And I always say, just kind of go through your day and what's missing? Where's a gap that you can fill something? And for us, it was that we had small children. We were losing our belongings. Everybody had the same sippy cups and bottles and snack containers. And we thought there's got to be something out there. And we were using masking tape and permanent marker. And we're like, nope, no good, no good. So there wasn't something out there. So we did a lot of, R&D, a lot of testing of materials. And then we created our original first label, which was our dishwasher microwave safe label, highly personalized with the child's name, colors, icon. So very cute, and a cheap insurance policy for parents. So that was reason number one. And then the second reason for me particularly was that at that time, my eldest child was diagnosed with autism. And I joked that I'm a recovered lawyer. So I just didn't think the traditional workforce was going to suit me any longer. I really wanted to be able to advocate for him and do all the work, into getting him to therapies and all that jazz. And honestly, he had just turned 3 and he already had 2 younger siblings. So it was a bit of a gong show around my house already. So at that point, after Mac's diagnosis and me with wanting to leave the traditional workforce, I said to the gals, okay, we've had this really great idea. What do you think? Should we go for it? And they're like, yeah, let's go for it. And so we started making labels in my sister's basement. We outgrew that basement. We told her to buy a bigger house with a bigger basement, and she did. And then eventually we landed in the place we are now, which is a 20,000 square foot facility. We have about 50 full-time employees, and that swells up in the summer because back to school time's very busy at Mabel's Labels, as you can imagine, with all the back to school gear getting bought and parents not wanting to lose it. So that's how it all went. And then along the way, I had more kids. So it's been a ride. So my six kids now, the youngest just turned 16. So things are a lot more civilized than they were back in the day when I had a bunch of little rugrats running around and I was trying to build a label empire.
Julie, it's so impressive and inspiring to listen to you, and share with us a little bit about those moments when you had, lots of littlies at home and you were trying to really build a company to what it is today, a multi-million-dollar company where you employ 50 plus people. You have a massive sort of factory producing your labels. How did you do it?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to lie. I made a few mistakes along the way. But then there were a couple of things that I kind of did right and also kind of fit with my personality and my perspective. And I often say that my perspective is probably my secret sauce. I'm not a big complainer. I'm pretty proactive. So I'm not going to sit around and say I'm tired. I'm going to try and find a solution to that, right? Plus, nobody wants to hear somebody whine about being tired or busy. We're all tired and busy. We get it. We don't need to talk about it. But if it's impacting us in a negative way and making us less productive and less happy, then, be the author of your own book and make some changes. So I think one of my mistakes in the early days was I thought, okay, well, I left the traditional workforce so I could be with my kids. So I won't get help with my kids. I'll just do the business and also be with the kids. And it meant for, very little sleep. For 10 years, I would actually sleep for 3 hours, get up and feed somebody, sleep for 2 hours, and that was it. Now, one of my superpowers is that I can get by, or I couldn't do it now, but in those days, I actually was one of those people who can get by on very little sleep. I've got some friends who would be a bear if they had that little sleep, and they would be like, so dysfunctional at work, such a bad parent, all that jazz. So you got to do what works for you, right? So I was able to get by, but I did find that I was very, every nap time was Mabel's Labels. It was put the kids to bed and then Mabel's Labels in the basement until 2 a.m. and then get up with the kids at 6. And it can be a recipe for burnout. So I think you need to really be aware of what your capacity is. And, if you need to take some self-care, and self-care can be defined in different ways. For me, self-care isn't getting a manicure or getting a massage. For me, it was like being able to go to my kids', ice hockey game and not chase a toddler around. So, don't let other people define what your me time or self-care looks like. But don't be afraid to get the help. And, I finally got a nanny when my 5th kid turned 1, and that was clearly 3 kids too late, right? So I think, and also at the same time, I was very much the primary caregiver and the default parent and doing all that, because in my mind, I really needed Daddy-O to go to work every day. I needed him to build his career because we were investing. I mean, I wasn't working, right? I mean, in theory, I wasn't getting a lawyer's paycheck anymore. Those first few years of entrepreneurship are tough. So I wanted to make sure he got a full night's sleep. So he was going off to work, being effective. So I definitely was kind of carrying a lot of the load in a lot of ways. So it was busy times, but I'll tell you, like all good memories, like it was scrappy, right? And it was entrepreneurial. And I'm going to say that one of the benefits I had was having my 3 co-founders at that time. Now, remember, this was 22 years ago. So we couldn't listen to people like you on a podcast who would give us help and give us tips and give us community and connect with us. So if you were a solo entrepreneur, particularly, it could be very lonely. So for me, I think it was a real benefit having co-founders, because when one of us was down or thinking, what do we think we're doing here? We're never going to make it. We're never going to, the others would be there saying, oh, we got this. Or if, somebody was off having a baby or a sick kid, the others could rally around. And also having 4 different brains at the table was helpful because you have 4 different skill sets. And we also were able to divide up the labor. So it wasn't like me doing everything. I could focus on one part of the business, somebody else could focus on. And I think that really contributed to our early growth. But I will say this, that when you have a co-founder, everybody who's listening, if you're doing the entrepreneurial journey, you want to make sure that you know who you're getting into bed with, make sure you know them very well. Always work on your communication style. Know that there's going to be a lot of feisty conversation, but that when you leave that boardroom, you still are family or you still are friends. So that can take a lot of work. So your co-founders are excellent to have, but also can provide challenges that you got to make sure that you're working through.
Yeah, amazing, Julie. I'm wondering, how far in your journey did you think I've actually amassed so much insight and information that I can pass on to others that then led you to writing the book? When did you find that confidence to say, I actually have a lot to say about this?
Yeah, I think going through the process of like having a startup, and I always say in entrepreneurship and actually in parenting too, there are a lot of parallels, that you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because in the startup phase, you're like, okay, now I know what I'm doing. I know how this works. And then suddenly you have a growth spurt and you're like, wow, I have to employ people and I don't even know anything about HR. I better hire somebody who can help me in HR, create policy, that sort of thing. And then you have more growth. And you're like, wow, I need more technology. I need more equipment. So you're always learning as you're going, just like parenting, right? And you're like, I can do babies. Suddenly you got preschoolers and you got teenagers. So you're always learning and changing, right? So I think when I got to, the point of having gone through enough seasons, enough levels of growth, and have had the experience, then I thought, you know what? It's time. It's time to write that book. And I'll tell you really what was the real catalyst for me, and a lot of women entrepreneurs can relate to this, was that the pandemic hit. And we saw women starting businesses, creating side hustles, doing incredible things during that time. Women are starting businesses at phenomenal rates, particularly at that time. And a lot of women are driven to entrepreneurship often because of the state of their family needs. So they want to do that shift. And because women are still carrying a lot of that family load and households aren't running entirely democratically yet, women are the ones who are shifting professionally. So, it was really when the pandemic happened, all of a sudden I wasn't going to conferences to speak. I wasn't turning up on live TV. All of these things shut down. And I was home. And of course, all my kids were home too, which, as you know, was a bit of a gong show. Two kids were sent home from university, the others were online learning. So it was a very loud, busy, fun house. But I thought, gosh, I'm not traveling. If I don't get this book done during, like, I felt like I was grounded, right? I was grounded. So I thought, this is my time. And I made very good use of that time. And that's when I put the book together.
Incredible, Julie. And it's truly an incredible guide, and I want to encourage everyone to go out there and buy it. Like a Mother, you get it on Amazon or everywhere you buy a book. Julie, tell us a little bit more about those learnings that you feel are so important for you to pass on to others as a woman entrepreneur, as a mompreneur, 22 years in.
Okay, so there's really, really so many. I think the first would be around managing expectations. Yours, first of all, if you're going to go into the entrepreneurial world, you have to have a certain appetite for risk. If you're risk adverse, it might not be the place for you because you're taking risks all the time. And you also need to understand that it gets romanticized. People think it's all TED Talks and book deals and speaking engagements, where it really looks like making labels in a basement till 2 a.m. when you're pregnant with your fourth child. It's not putting the kids to bed, pouring a glass of wine, and throwing on the Netflix with your spouse. Like, there's none of that. And you're also maybe going to be doing without that new car, that holiday, because for a while, for a long time, for some people, you don't draw a salary. So you're going to be doing without financially. You're going to be putting a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this, a lot of sweat equity. So manage your own expectations that it's not, and not to romanticize it. Don't think you're going to make $1 million in the first year, and also if you have a partner or a spouse, they better understand it too, because it is a big transition and a family. So I think just everybody's got to be really aware about it. As far as productivity, because that's kind of, that's important to me. So I have to get a lot done. I had to, build a business, raise a family, do all those things. And a couple of things that I'm really sort of passionate about is my number one productivity tip is eat the frog. And that is do the thing that you want to do least first. So maybe you have to call that angry customer. Maybe you need to write a chapter in your book. Maybe you have to get that workout done. Whatever it is that you need to do, get it done first, because otherwise it's living rent free in your brain for the rest of the day. And every time you think about it, it's taking up some productivity space. So if you want to be the most efficient, most productive person, do what you want to do least first and get it done. I'm also a big fan of saying no. I say no a lot. I get invited to events, brand events, speaking things. I actually have a 10-point checklist before I say yes. And it's all around, are the right people in the room? Do I have customers in the room? Are there potential collaborations? Are there potential, what's next? So all of these things you have to, because we can't go to everything. So make sure you're turning up in the right rooms for you, not random rooms, the right rooms. And if you're the smartest person in the room, time to get a new room, always challenge yourself and move to the next level, right? So, and say no to your kids. I'm a big fan of saying no to my kids. People laugh at me, but I talk about it in the book about how I'm a big fan of natural consequences. So if my kid forgets their lunch at home, I don't bring it to them. They only forget it once. They're not going to starve. Nobody's had scurvy yet. And I could have spent all my time like dropping off lunches and PE kits and forgotten homework and all that. And then I wouldn't get anything done. Instead, I help create tools and strategies for my kids, whether it's visuals, whether it's checklists, to help them make sure that they are organized to get out the door because I needed to get things done. And what I find is that when you use those no's, then there's more respect for your time. And I know we all have these great big to-do lists, and I would challenge everyone to have a do not do list. What are you doing that you should take off that list? So maybe it's time to get a virtual assistant. Maybe it's time to say, you know what? I'm not unstacking the dishwasher anymore. I know for me, in the evening, I need to spend a chunk of time with my neurospicy kid who has some executive functioning deficits. So we need to chunk out his next project, do something like that. That's something I can do, but maybe his siblings can't. But you know what they can do? Unstack a dishwasher. So go where you are needed most and let other people do the rest. Saying no is powerful because it makes room for a lot of important yeses.
Julie, everything you say, I love, and I find it deeply inspiring and motivating and full of guidance. And so I'm so grateful for you to take the time and talk to us today. So everyone who's listening, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You have all these incredible conversations. Julie, tell us a little bit more about you now. 22 years in, six kids down the line, the youngest is 16. What really matters to you now, and how do you want to matter going forward?
Right. I think it's interesting because, like you say, like as far as the parenting goes, people always say bigger kids, bigger problems. And I get that there's an emotional load sometimes, depending on your kids, depending on what they're, if you're dealing with some mental health stuff, you're dealing with some academic, who knows, social stuff, like all of that stuff, we've got to really be there for. But I actually find it really enjoyable. It's not as physically demanding. So I'm not changing diapers. Like I changed diapers for 12 years, right? So like everybody can, if we're going away, everybody packs themselves, everybody sets their own alarm clocks and gets out the door. So in a lot of ways, this whole bigger kids, bigger problems, I say baloney. It's like my tea's still hot. I get to eat something other than crusts for lunch. So in a lot of ways, like there has been that growth, like we see in entrepreneurship in our businesses. So that has adapted a lot because, I'm a very involved mom, but now you actually have to shift to more of a coaching role. And I think also that's something 22 years later that a lot of entrepreneurs sometimes have a hard time with, and that is letting go. You've got to make sure that you're hiring managers and you're hiring directors who can do the job. If you micromanage them and if you overcorrect them and if you don't let them be entrepreneurial, if you don't let them make decisions, a couple of things. Your company's not going to grow. They're not going to have skin in the game and you're going to lose them. It's not good for retention. So it's not good for your business. So if you want your business to thrive, sometimes you need to just step out of the way, make sure you're hiring people who fill gaps. Don't hire people who are just going to be like, oh, Julie, you're the best. I want to be just like you. No, I'm hiring people who are smarter than me, who have skills that I don't have, who are going to be leaders. I want to report to these people one day, right? So that's, I think, the mindset you have to have if you want growth is you've got to leave your ego at the door. And then something I'm really enjoying right now, kind of, at this age and stage is, not really caring what people think is so like amazing. I've kind of probably been a lot that way all along. But I really love like the mentoring piece and being able to give back and share what I've learned because what's the point? Like if I can't help out another mom who's like starting a business, a product-based business, and she's like, can you look at my website and tell, like, I love doing that. And I really feel it's my duty to do so.
I love that you say that, Julie, and that you're doing something for the greater good, and you're passing the torch on, and you're here for people to give some mentoring and advice and giving back. So how you lead with that, obviously, Julie, you lead with your story, you use all the insights along your journey, and you guide and help people that way. What kind of a leader are you now, and do you want to be going forward?
Yeah, it is funny how leadership sort of evolves and changes. And I mean, I think the more we learn about ourselves as we age, and the more we learn about leadership, I think there's this old-fashioned idea around leadership that, you're the loudest, you speak up in meetings, you're that extrovert. And I think we now know that there's a lot of value to the introverted leaders. There's a lot of value to empathetic leaders. So I think what we as women leaders need to do is not feel we have to fight who we are to lead like a man, but there is so much power in leading like a woman. And I think we can lean into that. And we also know things like women-led companies, companies that have female CEOs and female founders have more flexible cultures. They live by their core values, and they're actually far more philanthropic. And isn't that good for everyone? So more women in charge.
Hell yes.
Yeah, baby.
I love everything you said. What does success mean for you now, Julie? You obviously built this incredible company. Mabel's Labels has been growing and continues to grow. What does success look like for you now?
That's a really interesting question. And I'm going to say something that's a little bit weird. And I actually don't think I've verbalized this, but it's kind of a strange feeling because I was always that person who was like very motivated, very like, what's next? Okay, like went to grad school. Now I want to go to law school. I had one kid. I'm like, that's too easy. Let's have another one. Like everything, I'm always striving for the next thing. And I think in a lot of ways, I do feel like it is maybe an ADD strategy, a coping strategy. Like, stay very scheduled, stay very busy, be very productive, be, that person who can do all the things. I always said, oh, if you want to get something done, get a busy person to do it. But I think being that way helped me stay organized. I think if I had these gaps, then I wasn't productive, and that scared me. So I've just always done that. And it is a very strange place now to be here because, I, somebody nominated me for this big award, and they're like, can you fill out the thing, whatever? And I looked at it, I'm like, no, I don't need any more awards. I don't need any, like, I just don't need any more kudos. I've arrived. I'm good. I'm fine. And it's so funny because those are the things that used to be like really like, it was like a dopamine hit almost. Whereas now I feel like I'm really transitioning into like this more level kind of the things that would give me that dopamine hit don't. And I don't know if it has to do with, our changing hormones as we age and things like that, or just getting to a point of like, I'm a sort of more a coach now. But I love my brand. I love Mabel's Labels. I'm still in it to like, I'm so motivated in that way, but motivated differently. And that has shifted. So success for me is like really just making sure we're meeting our goals, that the team is happy, that I keep turning up, that I have fun, and that my kids are doing well and that they're healthy and they feel good about themselves. That's it.
Yeah,
And it's
amazing.
enough.
Julie, you've been the face of your company for a very long time. What does that feel like? You have many co-founders. You're the one that's been speaking up. You're the one on the TV shows. You're the one that wrote the book.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit what that meant for you.
Yeah, I think, when we all sort of fell into our eventual roles, like at the beginning, it was like a lot of fitting things where they fit with that person at the moment. But eventually we did just go into where our natural skills and talents were. And for me, I'm very comfortable in front of a crowd. I'm a good speaker. I'm a writer. So it just made sense that I be that person. And for us, it was important to have a personal brand behind the professional brand because we know how our customers are. Our customers are moms and they want to feel connected to the brands that they buy from. They don't want to buy from nameless, faceless brands. So in those early days, like I was one of those OG mom bloggers, like back 18, 19 years ago, right? Like, and I wasn't blogging about labels. I was blogging about, getting through the day without smelling like baby vomit, so and then that made me relatable like all of our customers, right? So obviously as I age, that evolves and that changes. So I come from more a seasoned mom perspective. I'm not talking about pushing a triple stroller around anymore because I'm not. And having an authentic personal brand is so important. And I think it's important to be transparent and visible as your personal brand changes, and then they'll accept you and keep you. It's when you try and pretend you're not you that people have
Totally.
a problem. We always say the mamas can sniff out a fake.
Totally. And you lead so powerfully with your story, your experiences, Julie. And I love that it's authentic and vulnerable because that's what guidance to others means. What do you feel are you most proud of, Julie, to date?
Good question. I do kind of joke about this, but so my son, the reason why we started Mabel's Labels because of his autism diagnosis. He's 25 now. And he graduated from university. He's backpacked around Australia on his own. He's just, doing an internship now for his profession. He's got like a profession. He wears a suit every day. He is an amazing brother. He's a friend to many. He and his buddies from high school just had a cottage weekend. So he has done extremely well. And, I'm very proud of the work we put in. When he was younger, we all put in, he put in. And honestly, like all of my siblings, like all of his aunts and uncles, all of his grandparents had required reading. They knew what was on his program. They got trained in ABA therapy. Everybody was on board. I went hard at it. And I'm really proud of the work I did. And I always joke and say that on my deathbed, I'll say he's my life's greatest achievement. And the other 5 are okay too.
I love that.
They're all amazing, Stephanie. Honestly, they're just like, my kids are a jam. I love it. And it's so funny too. Like when they're all home from uni and whatever, like I laugh because I walk in our house and like they're all just like besties and chatting and they almost speak another language. And I said, guys, I almost feel like when you're all here, I'm like that outdated CEO who just takes a newspaper to the office to look important and feel important. Like I'm still relevant. And they're like, yeah, Mom, we kind of are our own ecosystem. I'm like, I get that.
I know. I'm definitely in that phase as well.
You there?
And it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing.
It is so fun.
Julie, so I'm always wondering, as entrepreneurs, what if you had one message for your government to make your life easier? As an entrepreneur, what would that be?
For our government? Oh gosh, where shall I start? I think, there's actually this incredible woman, Allison, who has this company called Moms at Work, and they do a lot of advocacy. And, some of the things that are really important are, daycare costs going down. We need to like maternity leave extensions, better pay during maternity leave, because healthy families and connected parents make for better communities and better futures for our country. Pay transparency, like let's not waste particularly women, let's not waste their time, have them go through 3 interviews and find out you're not aligned on salary. Be transparent about salary. Like there are all these things that can really help women succeed. And I think also, we have to be very mindful of things around sexual harassment. We need in the workplace, we need our men allies to stand up. If you get interrupted in a board meeting, it would be nice if a dude would be like, hey, she's not done.
Yeah.
Or, don't take our ideas, give us credit for our ideas. There's a lot of stuff culturally that needs to happen. And there's a lot of things politically that need to happen to make this a level playing field. We know we're decades away from even getting pay equality. So the work there's lots of work to be done.
Yeah. All over the world.
All over the world.
Julie, so give us an outline of your plans, 2025 and beyond. What does it look like for you the next couple of years?
Yeah. So, we just did our strategic planning for 3 days here with the Mabel's Labels leadership team. We've got all sorts of cool products, cool technology lined up, cool ideas to connect with customers. There is just so much fun happening. We've also got a production facility in California. So I know I'm going to LA next week for an event. We are just doing so many exciting things, our product rollout, listening to our customers, our customer experience, and just, again, having fun. I plan on staying here as long as I'm having a blast and as long as I'm needed. So we are, this strategic planning, I left feeling inspired. I totally uplifted by this leadership team, which is just incredible. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Julie, it's so exciting and inspiring to see you be so inspired after 22 years of doing this, of raising 6 children, of which one has autism. And I love that you lead so beautifully and powerfully with your own story, leading like a woman and a mom. And we need many more stories like that. So thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, Stephanie, thank you so much. And if anyone wants to find me, obviously mabelslabels.com, and things specifically to me are mabelslabels.com/Julie Cole.